Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Full Time is presented by the Game Sports Podcast and powered by 91 Network. You are listening to Season 5, Episode 6 of Full Time. I'm your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their two locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Remind our listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi weekly as well. Folks, we welcome you back to Full Time, where we get to talk about all things football. G, how are you tonight, my friend?
I'm feeling supersonic, Scarps. Good day at work, getting closer to the weekend. Getting excited for the City game this weekend. I'm rolling. How are you doing?
Life is good, man, and I share your sentiments just the same. In today's show, we will talk about some news in the world of football, Europe's Big Five, the MLS, including the Canadian Championship final, and local soccer. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. We get today's show, started with some news in the world of football. Christine Sinclair, Canadian soccer legend, has announced that she will retire from the game of soccer after more than a decorated 25-year career. Sinclair will play her final game on November 1st, which is Portland's final regular season home game. Gitano, the words legend, icon, GOAT amongst so many others come to mind, but this is now time for the best to ever do it to step down. I'll hand it over to you now, my friend.
Yeah, and I mean, like you say, GOAT, icon, legend. Like it's still, and we talked about this when she retired from the national team. It just doesn't feel like enough recognition for her. Just one of Canada's greatest ever athletes. Professional career starting in 2009 in the Women's Professional Soccer League when that folded and NWSL was formed. Spent her entire career starting in 2013 to this season in Portland. It's just an icon of the game. Someone, a pioneer, really, for especially in the North American side of things. Because she could have at any point. There was a period of time there where she was maybe one of the best players in the world, outside of maybe Marta and Alex Morgan. She could have went to Europe, competed for Champions League there, but she chose to stay in North America to build and grow the game here. And that legacy, I feel, and I think most people would feel like it's going to kind of live forever here. Like she made us Olympic champions, like Canada, women's Olympic champions in soccer. Like that, it's just it's unthinkable, really. But kind of on the back of her and that group, starting all the way in the early 2000s, and what they built, just a legacy, like I said, that's just going to live forever. We as a nation, as a sporting nation, owe her like the world and more. And again, like it still doesn't feel like enough to say that. Just one of soccer's greatest ever players. She did kind of hint at when she retired from the national team that this would be her last professional season, but it does hit a little hard to home, like a little close to home. Realize like we're never going to get to see her play again. I'm rambling here because there's nothing I can say that does justice to her career, her legacy. And the thing is, whether she kicks the ball again or not after that, whether she gets into management or anything like that, like she completely changed soccer in North America, specifically in Canada, and for that we're forever in her debt.
Yeah, and we could have an entire episode just on her alone, several episodes, in fact, for what she's done over these 25 years. But for me, the word gratitude comes to mind. I'm just incredibly grateful for everything that she's done for the sport, specifically on the women's side of it, but everything, like you said, in North America and specifically for our country. And you used the word pioneer. I thought that was a great word to basically summarize what she's done. And I mean, when we look back, 10, 15, 20, 50 years from now, and forever for that matter, she'll always be recognized as that one person who really put us on the map, and we owe her, like I said, a debt of gratitude and some. So a huge thanks to Christine Sinclair, and the best, of course, in her retirement, which is incoming very soon. Let's now jump over to Europe's Big Five, and we will begin with the English Premier League. It's Liverpool who are at the top of the table with 15 points. Manchester City and Arsenal are joint second with 14 points. Chelsea and Aston Villa are just behind with 13 points each of their own. Gee, these are the teams so far who are amongst the best in the Premier League. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, a couple surprises, but nothing really. I feel like Chelsea are going to kind of tail off a little bit. I think they're still kind of running a little hot, just fresh signings, new season, but I still don't think Enzo has enough. Not. I don't want to say he doesn't have enough players. He's got far too many players in his squad. I don't think there's enough cohesion, and I don't think you can build for a whole season based on like a squad like that. They're going to fall off at some point. But again, to see City, Arsenal, Liverpool in the top three, I expected Villa to have a good season. They've started off phenomenally, including in Europe. Not like a ton of crazy surprises, but it's been good so far.
It has been good so far, and Aston Villa actually had the chance to go top of the table on Sunday, and I believe that they drew against Ipswich, or against somebody for that matter. But again, top of the table right now. I know it's still super early, but a lot of teams in the mix, which is great to see. And in the bottom three, we now have Crystal Palace, Southampton, and Wolves. Gitano, Everton, and Ipswich have gotten themselves out of the relegation zone for the time being, anyways. Leicester is just on the outside as well. That's based, of course, on goal difference. So what can we say for the bottom of the table right now?
Yeah, just on Ipswich quick, Liam Delap has looked ridiculously good so far. Coming through City Academy, there was always kind of big hype about him. Just again, with Erling Haaland in the squad, you're just not going to get them. That's that striker that you need at that age to develop, but he's looked fantastic there, and is a huge reason why they're currently not in the relegation zone. But looking at the three down there, Wolves, they've been on and off. Just again, it's one of those things where they play like a good 45, 50 minutes of football and then just completely fall apart, or completely fall apart in the first 40 minutes, and then they're fighting back and trying to salvage and not getting anything. But only one draw and 5 losses after 6 games. Not an ideal start for them or Southampton. Southampton, we kind of expected this from them. Like we talked about, this squad's just not ready to stay in the Premier League. They'll go down, probably win the championship or contend for that and be back up in a couple of years. And Palace, I think they're just a little off. A big departure, Michael Olise, this summer. Not that they didn't replace him, but it's hard for a team like that to replace his star quality. But I do expect them to kind of get the ship sorted and get out of the drop zone soon.
Yeah, and just to that point of Crystal Palace, I don't expect them to stay there for too long. I think that they'll figure it out in due course. And then just on Wolves, quick as well. If you take a look at their fixtures in their opening 5-6 games, they've played like all very good teams. So you imagine that things are going to kind of balance off at some point. Like they are going to pick up some results, and I expect them to get out. But to your point to Southampton, it just looks like and you've been saying it for several weeks that it's just not destined for them. But we'll continue to keep an eye on the relegation zone as we always do. Italy Serie A is about as fun as it gets. Napoli is now at the top with 13 points. Juventus is second with 12 points. Milan, Inter, and Torino all have 11 points. Empoli, Lazio, and Udinese have 10 points. Gitano, this is completely different in terms of the picture that we looked at with the top of the table from our last show. It's absolutely unreal right now in Serie A, isn't it?
It is, and like the crazy thing. So before we started recording, you mentioned like Udinese had dropped to 8th, and I looked and I was like, oh, that's like terrible. They're only 3 points off the top. Like they win at the weekend, they're back up. It's incredible. I don't know kind of what has happened in Italy the last couple of seasons, but whatever is going on there needs to continue for a very long time. This has probably been Europe's most exciting league, probably even more than the Prem, just because of City's kind of domination. You kind of expect City to win. You look at Serie A for the last couple of years, and you have no idea what is going to happen. It's been fantastic.
It really has been, and long may it continue, like you said, because this competitiveness is great. We were talking I think it was a matter of 2 weeks ago that Milan was in something like 10th, mid, and now they're in the mix for European football. So I expect these changes to keep going, and I hope that they do for our viewership purposes. In Spain's La Liga, Barcelona is no longer unblemished, but they still are top of the table. Behind them is Real Madrid, followed by Villarreal and Atletico Madrid. Gitano, what could be said for La Liga right now?
Yeah, it's an interesting start, specifically for Real Madrid. You would think that adding Kylian Mbappe would just, and it seems like simplistic to say like adding Kylian Mbappe should mean you should win all your games, but they've just looked a little disjointed this season. Again, still in second place, haven't lost 5 wins and 3 draws in their 8 games, but it feels like there's something missing, something's not clicking there yet. And again, we kind of assume it's going to. He's one of the best players in the world, surrounded by more of the best players in the world. It'll take some time, but it should click. But just interesting, considering kind of the expectations going into this season.
Yeah, and sometimes, when a team brings in a personality like that, such a high quality player, it's interesting because it does take a little bit of time to click. But like you said, one of the best players in the world, surrounded by other top quality, if not world class players. And then you got Ancelotti as the manager, world class in his own right. So in due time, they certainly will figure it out. Out in Germany, the Bundesliga still sees Bayern Munich at the top with 13 points. Not too far behind them is trailing in second place Frankfurt. They have 12 points. Leipzig is third with 11 points. Leverkusen, Dortmund are both joint fourth with 10 points. Gee, it's a competitive opening 5 games here, 5 game weeks that is in the Bundesliga. What can you say here?
Yeah, I think Bayern Munich have looked really good. Vincent Kompany's got them playing phenomenally, especially domestically. Obviously, Europe, they crushed Zagreb a couple of weeks ago, but that's kind of to be expected. But I think they've got a really big challenge this week, and they actually play Frankfurt. So I think not that they've had easy games to start, but I think this is going to be a really, really big test for Vincent Kompany as a manager. I think it's a really big test for that squad. They lost Aston Villa in Europe this week, which is insane, by the way, like insane. So I think, kind of to see how you bounce back from that against the team in second place right behind you. Not that I don't want to say this is a crucial game week, we're still in October here, but I think this could make or break kind of the next 6 weeks of their season. If they pick up a win, they might start rolling. If they don't get that result, like how do they respond? What does that response look like? Do they maybe stumble a little bit? Is Vinny able to kind of bring them, pop them right back into it? It'll be really interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Yes, and for me, the biggest thing that I wouldn't say looking forward to, but I'm interested to see is when they do eventually hit a rough patch where there's, a string of games where things aren't going to plan. I want to see how this Bayern Munich team reacts under Vincent Kompany because we know that adversity at some point in the season is going to come. The fact that Leverkusen did what they did last season, that was unheard of, unthinkable. Won't see it, I'm not going to say ever, but won't see it for a very, very long time probably. So when Bayern Munich eventually do come into some adversity and some struggles, I'm very interested to see how they will respond to that. And in France's league, it's early, but it is tight. Both PSG and Monaco are joint top with 16 points. Marseille is just below them with 13 points. Gee, how about Monaco challenging PSG's in these early days in league play in France?
Yeah, it's bringing back those 16-17 vibes. Obviously it's a little less star power in that Monaco team. Mbappe, Bernardo Silva, Gallo, James Rodriguez. There was a ton of quality in that team. But yeah, like we said a couple of weeks ago, like PSG aren't going to be the juggernaut that they have been when you lose a player like Kylian Mbappe. There's obviously going to be a fall off, especially because they didn't replace him directly. But again, we still expect them to run away with it. Not run away with it. We expect them to win the league. They shouldn't be running away with it. And I think this Monaco team has kind of all the right pieces to give them a really good challenge this season.
Yeah, and as long as the push is there, that's what we would like to see. And again, like we said with City, long may that continue as well. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. The MLS is slowly coming to a close, and it's all eyes on the playoff picture. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the Canadian Championship that just concluded last week. The Canadian Championship is Canada Soccer's highest domestic professional soccer competition, as all Canadian professional clubs have an opportunity to compete in the competition. Gee, it was a tournament that saw our TFC get to the final to play against the Vancouver Whitecaps. Unfortunately for us, it was Vancouver who earned the the victory, which was their third consecutive title after defeating Toronto FC on penalties after a scoreless draw. So, G, I'm going to pass it over to you to break things down here because certainly this wasn't the final that we were expecting or that we were hoping for.
Yeah, I know the Canadian Championship final kind of felt like a breaking point as a TFC fan. For years, we've kind of put up with what MLSE and Rogers have done as an ownership group. Starts with selling Sebastian Giovinco, best player in franchise history, still the best player in the league at that point, simply because he wanted a raise. He was the best player in the league, was winning us trophies. Like why would you not pay him more? But nope, ship him to Qatar. They got lucky in 2019, kind of with that group pushing through to MLS Cup final that they ended up losing. But since then, it's just been like a downward spiral. Greg Vanney gone. DP's leaving like Josie Altidore. Bringing in terrible coaches like Bob Bradley and Chris Armas. It has felt as a fan like the direction of the club, like there is no direction for the club as long as they're making money. But on the business side, the boardroom doesn't care what happens on the field. And as a fan, it's just a slap in the face. And I don't want to make this about like losing the Canadian Championship final. Like I'm okay with them losing games. I understand they're going to lose games. I was in BMO Field in December of 2016 watching us lose an MLS Cup final. But I remember leaving that stadium going, that group, those players, they gave everything, 150%, and then some. And we lost, and that's it. That is what it is. But watching the Canadian Championship final last week, it felt like Jonathan Osorio was the only player who cared. The rest of them were out for a stroll. Lorenzo Insigne, I don't think broke a sweat and was subbed after 60 odd minutes. So third highest paid player in the league, by the way. Federico Bernardeschi, for all his kind of, I don't want to call it a show, but he's a very expressive person, like expressive player. For all of that, can't score a penalty against Vancouver's second choice keeper. And I get there's no disrespect to the keeper, but like make him make a save. Like you hit it right at him. And then just the attitude of that group is just they don't care. They don't understand what it means to put on that jersey, to play for the club, to play for the fans. And it's a shame that that's what we have to suffer through. And then kind of the salt in the wounds is the morning after the Canadian Championship final, waking up to an email. Oh, Miami's coming to town next weekend. Make sure you get your tickets, because that's the bottom line. They don't care what goes on that field. As long as people are buying jerseys and buying tickets, it'll continue. And I managed to not swear during this. I'm really proud of myself.
I'm also proud of you for that too. It's incredibly deflating. And, we've both been TFC fans since the beginning of time. In fact, it's one of the things that initially connected us with a friendship over a decade ago. The club is certainly not unrecognizable. I don't want to go that far. I think that's probably a bit of a stretch, but from what it was to what it is now and, everything else in between, it's really upsetting to see the direction that it's gone. And like you said too, that final, when you really look at it, there wasn't much passion on the pitch like we've seen in some of the recent performances. And when you look at it from a behind the scenes point of view, I don't know. It certainly is dejecting and deflating and all the rest of it. So, you can only hope that things will change in time. And you wonder if what we're going to talk about here shortly with the playoffs looming, if, TFC does manage to get in, if that changes the fortunes of things down the road. But I don't think at this point anything is guaranteed, is it?
No. And it's just, and like you said, it's not, we're not used to, not that we're not used to winning, but like you had the foundation, you had the best coach in the league in Greg Vanney, you had the best GM in the league, Tim Bezbatchenko, who we let go to our direct rival Columbus Crew, where he's won MLS championships. It's just, again, it's not quite directionless, but we're, rapidly approaching that point where TFC will just be, another club in MLS that just plays their 34 games and does nothing and means nothing in the grand scheme of things. And again, as fans, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, and that's how it was like at the very start. I'm talking like
2007. Oh yeah. But here's the thing, like you get that like as a team, like as a new team, like you're not supposed to just show up and have pedigree and win things unless you're LAFC. But it's just I'm okay with us losing games. I'm okay with us being bad as long as there's kind of there's effort on the pitch and kind of a direction off the pitch. I'm okay, like obviously we knew kind of after that era of Giovinco, Bradley, Alstor, we knew there was going to be a shift. It wasn't going to just continue to roll forever. It would be fantastic. It's not the way MLS works. But just like there's just been no direction really since that. It's just been, oh, well, we'll sign Italian players because Giovinco's Italian. He was really good. Like, no, like that's not how it works. And hopefully, with Bernardeschi's red card in the last MLS game and Insignia's injuries, it sounds bad to say, but hopefully we've kind of seen the last of them in Toronto.
Yeah, in a certain way, I agree with that, and hopefully we've heard Helm and some of his guys for us. And more specific to the MLS conference, are ramping up to a pretty awesome finale. At least it would appear. In the East, they have wrapped up the conference with 2 games to spare. They currently have 68 points. Second to them is Columbus with 57 points, then Cincinnati with 56 points. Looking further down the table, as we just discussed, it is our Toronto FC currently holding on to that 9th and final playoff spot, but they just have 1 game remaining. They're currently level on points with Philadelphia and DC United, who both have a game in hand over TFC. Gitano, Inter Miami essentially ran the conference this year in utterly dominant fashion. Let's talk a little bit about them first.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get what you pay for. You pay for Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez and Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba, even at this point in their career, just significantly better than any other players in MLS. And it's kind of to go back to the TFC thing, like they're playing, like you pay them a ton of money, they're showing up, they're scoring the goals you expect them to, they're making the plays you expect them to, and they seem like they give a shit about playing for Inter Miami. So yeah, no surprise there that they kind of run the league, not even just the conference, the whole league this year. They've been stupid good. And he did make the trip. He was on the plane to Toronto. I will say that, but I don't expect him to play at any point on Saturday. But I really still don't think TFC have a snowball's chance in hell of getting a point against this Inter Miami team. They've just been so good. Even when they've rotated, they've been so good. I think it's probably curtains for TFC.
Yeah, and you just kind of summarized it there. Basically, TFC need 3 points to basically give themselves a chance. I mean, anything is possible. We say it all the time on Full Time that anything is possible because it's football. But at the end of the day, I also think that for them to have a chance at this, I mean, I'd be shocked if it happened. Let's put it that way. If TFC hold on to that 9th and final playoff spot, I'll be shocked. So I mean, it's probably the end of the road for them, but. We will see. And just on Inter Miami quickly, did you see Lionel Messi's free kick the other day to go around the side of the wall and then just go just outside the post and then hook back in, just froze the goalkeeper? Not to say I've never seen anything like it, because I have, but like ridiculous.
Greatest player of all time, like bar none. Great. And I know it's like MLS and people like discount that. Like the ability to do that, I don't care who you put in net, they're not stopping that. No. Like that is, as picture perfect a free kick as you could ever take. And yeah, greatest of all time.
Like, from a coaching point of view, it's all like we've done it with young kids. I've done it with university level players. Okay, let's get it up and over the wall. And then, you have your offsetting players to come in case the goalkeeper parries. You have to follow in these types of things. But to be able to get it around the wall, the side of the wall, like from a coaching point of view, that doesn't even come into my head. Or the only other thing that would come into my head is, shoot the side of the goalkeeper, for that element of surprise. But to go around the wall, it was just, I was in awe. And what he's doing, I don't care that it's the MLS. It just goes to prove how amazing he truly is, and how, much we should be in awe of him, even though we of course already are. And in the Western Conference, the LA Galaxy continue to lead, of course. Haven't wrapped it up quite yet. They have 61 points ahead of their rivals LAFC, who are in second with 55 points. Seattle and Real Salt Lake are joint third with 53 points. Gitano, when we take a look at the West now, essentially the top 8 teams at this moment in time, as things currently stand, they'll all get into the playoffs. That final playoff spot looks to be contested between Portland and Austin. So the dealings out in the West are more or less settled, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty much. Like LA Galaxy like I said, haven't secured that first seed, but it's just kind of a mathematical thing. Like I don't see them dropping all of their last 2 games. I don't see LAFC winning all 3 of their games to kind of make up that difference. So I expect that to kind of look the same. And yeah, that Portland and Austin battle, you got to feel for Austin having to go to LA Galaxy as their second last game. Again, one of the best teams in the conference, whereas Portland are playing FC Dallas, who are kind of below both of them in table. So kind of a sticky situation there. But just kind of based on what I've seen this season, I expect Portland kind of hold on to this spot. They look pretty solid in a really tough conference outside of San Jose, because I can't not make fun of San Jose for having 21 points.
And the Western Conference, I mean, it is what it is. But like I said, some of my favorite games this season have come from that conference, and it's been a lot of fun to watch, certainly. And now it is time for a local soccer update. The SFC Cup is getting ready to wrap up, with the final taking place next Wednesday, October 9th. If you missed our last show, the SFC Cup is an annual men's soccer tournament here in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, that is held every fall as an extension of the outdoor season and a preseason tournament for indoor soccer. Gitano, after the final this upcoming Wednesday, which I'm going to be playing in, we won our semifinal last night, so I'm looking forward to that. But after that final happens, it's going to be more or less time for indoor soccer to start up for youth, women, and men in the Sioux. So we're looking at like 10 to 14 days for things to really start up here. How excited can we be for Wednesday's Cup final, and as well as the startup for indoor soccer here in the Sioux?
Who are you guys playing in the final? Because that changes the answer a little bit.
Don't know yet. So there's a knockout.
Oh, okay.
Played on Monday because it's double elimination for this tournament. So we'll find out. It'll be between Team Essentials and Roma.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are 2 very, very different games. I don't want to slight teams here, but I think one of those games would be significantly more competitive than the other. But again, either way, like I still think that kind of our soccer community should be super excited about getting to watch that final. And yeah, until you kind of said it now, like I didn't realize, like indoors like a couple of weeks away. Like my soccer bag's sitting in the closet, did all the laundry at the end of the summer, like thinking, oh, I don't need to touch it for a while. And I was like, oh, like I gotta get that out, gotta find all my cleats, find my shin pads again. Like, yeah, it's just a super exciting time.
It really is. And I mean, we're talking about, like I said, 10 to 14 days. Youth are going to be starting their draft games very soon. The women's league are getting their schedule sorted. So we'll be able to cover that here on Full Time as that time approaches. And more specifically to what's right ahead of us, that final, as mentioned, which is next Wednesday, October 9th. That's going to be played at 8 p.m. at the Northern Community Centre right here in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. And in other local soccer news, it's the Algoma Thunderbirds who will finish their regular season this upcoming weekend as they play host for the last game of the season against the Waterloo Warriors. The Algoma women's team have had a difficult season stacked with many injuries. So going into these last 2 games of the season, they are winless, meaning that qualifying for the playoffs is not possible. However, they have the opportunity to finish their season on a high here at home against Waterloo. What can be the focus for these Lady Thunderbirds going into the final weekend of the season?
Yeah, it's not been a great season for them. We've just kind of seen flashes of good, surrounded by, like I said, like lots of injuries. I think you said they were on their like third goalkeeper, I think it was, or fourth, or something like that.
Yeah, something were to happen to this goalkeeper, they don't actually have a real goalkeeper to play in goal. So
yeah, so like that's just like terrible circumstances that even kind of best teams in the country kind of wouldn't be able to play around that. But yeah, you just want to it sucks to like kind of look for things for the future, but you want to see the younger players, the first and second year players, see if they if they can get some chemistry. Just kind of and again, it sucks when you're kind of getting beat the way they have been, but you're just looking for just like little things, little glimmers of hope to bring forward for next year. Kind of. Yeah, it's like it's not a great outlook, but you just want to look for like some positives. You want to pull some diamonds out of the rough here, just anything to kind of cling to bring forward into next season. It's like, hey, like our defensive shape's okay. Like let's it's good. Let's work on that. Let's kind of have some sort of base somewhere on the field. Doesn't have to just be defensive shape. Just have something to kind of build around, and hope for better results next year.
Yeah, and if there is that glimmer of hope that you're referring to, there's not a single graduating player on the Algoma Thunderbirds team. This is a very young ladies team. So all of those players will be returning again next year. with a little bit more experience under their belt. So I think that can actually be a positive for them. And hopefully this weekend they can turn out a couple of good performances to end their season. And for the Algoma men's side of things, well, the script is almost entirely different. The men's team is currently on 9 points with 2 games to go. They are just outside of a playoff spot at this point in time as Brock University picked up 2 wins at the weekend. They are currently, as I said, battling Brock University as well as Waterloo, who they will play this weekend. And that'll be for a chance to grab that final spot in the playoffs. Gitano, this is the first time in the history of the Algoma soccer program at Algoma that either the men's or women's team is competing in the final matches of the season for a playoff spot. So you and I, just a couple of weekends ago, we went to go and watch Algoma play against York, where we saw the men's team upset the number 4 team in the country by a score of 3-1. And nothing is guaranteed this upcoming weekend. However, there is a spot on the line for the playoffs to grab that 6th and final playoff spot, which is, even if Algoma get all 6 points, it's not guaranteed, but they're going to be there just about. So what do you think that the message in the locker room might be for this men's team going into these last 2 games?
I mean, that's like a funny question because you're the actual coach here. But I mean, if I'm a player in that locker room, the message that I want to hear is just keep going, going, do everything we can. Because like you said, we might get the 6 points. It might not be enough. If that's the case, let's get the 6 points. And if it's out of our hands, then it's out of our hands. That's, we've done everything we can, but let's do everything we can to get to that spot to begin with.
Yeah. And I would agree with that too, that we have to let fate take care of itself. We can only control what we can control. Let's go leave everything on the pitch and we'll see what happens. And it's been a very interesting season in this conference in particular. Brock had a horrendous start, didn't pick up a point in their first 3 games, only got a point in their 4th game. Waterloo, on the other hand, had a really hot start, ended up drawing with York, picked up a couple points elsewhere, and then they dipped off. So Brock started slow. They've been turning things up. Waterloo started really hot, then they've dropped off, and Algoma's kind of been balanced all the way through. So one of these 3 teams is going to grab that final playoff spot, and we can only hope that it's going to be these Algoma Thunderbirds. And we'll talk a little bit now about when those games are. Hopefully this weekend everyone can get out to support. I know I'm certainly going to. Hopefully we can link up, G, and get there as well, because it's going to be an electric atmosphere, so we hope. Those who are able to get out to those games, both games will take place this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, October 5th and 6th. The women will kick off at 1 p.m. and the men will kick off at 3:15 p.m. on both games. On both days, excuse me. The games, as always, take place at Superior Heights Soccer Field. G, can this Algoma men's team do it? Can they make history?
Why not?
Why
not? I was not expecting them to, not that I didn't expect them to play that well, but actually watching them play after hearing you talk about them, they were so good. They were really, really good. And York is one of the best teams in the country. And I don't want to say they dominated them, but they controlled the majority of that game. So yeah, if they continue to play like that, I don't see why not pick up these 6 points and kind of pray for the best.
Yeah, and I know that amongst the men's team, obviously I was involved with some of those players previous and during my coaching tenure, which was a great time. I'm very close with the coaching staff still. So the phrase that they're using is "job's not finished." So
job's never finished.
Job is never finished. That's right. So I think to that they could also add, why not? I really like that. So best of luck to these men Thunderbirds this upcoming weekend, and hopefully they can get the job done. And best wishes, of course, to the Lady Thunderbirds as well. This is Dano Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download the Pizza Portal app for any of the in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we close out today's show, we want to send you, our wonderful listeners, the deepest thanks for tuning in. Your support means everything. G, as always, a pleasure, my brother.
It was a pleasure to join you tonight. I'm sure you might have heard my sister's dog barking in the background, dog sitting. So sorry if you heard her. I gave her a treat to be nice and quiet while you recorded. She must have finished it. But yeah, just a phenomenal episode, Scarps. Again, just a pleasure to be on here with you.
And a pleasure indeed. And I'm glad that you're a jack of all trades, because that was very discreet. So well done to you. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of October 7th, 2024. In that show, we will take a look at Europe's Big Five, the MLS, and local soccer. As always, we will keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms of both the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Podbean. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.